I know that you were very successful with your junk removal company and all, but I also know that you've moved on from that. Do you still have a junk removal company?
No, no,
Okay.
I sold it in 2023. So
So
I
this
was,
is where I want to learn about you, bro, because I've been trying to figure out, I know you're doing big things in the industry and all. So I wanted to learn about, like, I seen with the subcontracting. That was your big thing at the expo when you were talking. And I was like, it had my head going. I'm like, wait, this guy is making all this money and he's not leaving his couch, and he's getting jobs all over the place. How does this all work and everything? And how did you come up with this?
yeah, I mean, like I said, man, I've never once invented anything. I never reinvented the wheel. Like nothing that I did first. I haven't, like, I'm not the pioneer. There's other trash brokers out there that do it. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I've saw it. Check Sammy's been around for a long time. Go Load Up, Trash Warrior, I think was one that was around for COVID that went under. But there's other trash brokers out there, and by trash brokers, I mean middleman. Like, so instead of being the guy that goes and drives out there with your truck, you get the job and you oversee it, and then you sub the work out to a guy with a truck and a trailer. So I ran I-Haul for over a decade locally in Austin, and the transition happened right before COVID. So I I had a couple trucks. I had the small fleet of trailers, and one week both my trucks went down, and we were slammed. We had a bunch of work lined up, and so I was in a group message. The landfill manager had like 15 of us, like the 15 of the bigger junk removal guys that always, so that he could update us like if the line was long or if it was closed, for commercial only. I got you.
Yeah, you glitched for a minute. Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, so we were on a group message, and for a couple years, and one day my trucks went down, and so I reached out to the group and I said, guys, I got a full week of work. Without a truck, and like, so I asked them. I said, do you guys, if anybody wants any of these jobs, reach out to me. We'll work something out and get them done. And so I subcontracted a whole week's worth of work. I got all the jobs done. I made a much smaller percentage because I was giving them most of it, and but they got tips. I got reviews. Customers were happy. And I never bought another truck. I sold all my equipment after that. And I was like, okay.
I got to ask this. So what is your percentage on a job of subcontracting? What do you make off of that?
So it started with me at 40%, or the haulers at 40% and me at 60%. Because when I started it, I was paying out the ass for Google ads. And so in order for me to justify that, it was a 40-60 split. They got 40, I got 60. Eventually I got out of Google ads and I was just doing only SEO. And so my cost of acquiring the customers went way down. And I was having some issues with subcontractors. And so I wanted to be more demanding, have higher expectations of the subs. And so I created like a whole training portal, and I went from paying them 40% to paying them 60%. And instead of finding guys like on places like Craigslist, I started getting more active on Facebook and started talking about what the commercial jobs, and like, why am I getting these commercial jobs? Why was this customer willing to spend $800 on something that most haulers charge 300? And so I started talking about those things, and that's sort of how I got into the mentoring side of it, and so the transition happened over a couple of years, going from owning a business to marketing. The subcontract, before I get into the shift from owning hauling to marketing, the subcontracting shift happened in COVID. So my trucks went down, everything went well, and then COVID hit, and it was like the perfect timing. So I hadn't subcontracted outside of Austin yet. I did that just in Austin for over a year, and just subcontracting to the guys I knew in Austin. And
Can I ask you, Matt, how did you do over that 1 year's time? Like, what were you bringing in?
Between 4 and 500,000 is what I did for almost 10 years straight. My first year I did 189,000, and I did like 300 after that. And then we were just like 500 was my sweet spot. So we were doing 450 to 500
And that's
locally.
gross, or is that net?
No, it's just that's gross sales.
Okay.
Yeah. When I say a number, I'm talking about the either monthly or annual sales revenue.
So what does it take to run a business that, subcontracting to make those kind of numbers? Like, like how many jobs a day are you putting out there, would you say, on average?
Well, locally, I wasn't able to go get. I know that Austin can support more than a $500,000 junk removal company. I just didn't do it. I couldn't get past 500, and so once I knew that the subcontracting model was working without me there, I said, why can't I do this in Dallas? Why can't I do this in Seattle or Atlanta or LA? And so I created Google business profiles, started creating new landing pages. I looked at Got Junk. I said, what's Got Junk doing? How does Got Junk have different Google business profiles? How do they have this? And so I looked at their website. They don't have a ton of different websites. Okay, they have landing pages for this location. They have different service pages for these services. They have a Google business profile for each franchise with a different address and a different phone number. And so I created different Google business profiles. I created different business phone numbers. I used virtual offices to create the locations to get the Google profiles approved. And so I opened up in Denver, Atlanta, uh, Dallas, Seattle, LA.
What was making you go after those territories? Was it the population, a lot of
Oh,
business coming in those areas?
well, it's a luxury service, and so I wanted to be in metro areas where people have money. Like if you're in a rural area, it's tough. Like this is a luxury service. Like it's just like maid service, or like people that pay landscapers to come to their mansion twice a week. Like those are the type of people that love junk removal. Trying to sell junk removal to middle America, I mean, sure, you can shove it down their throats, but they're not going to love it. You know what I mean? The people that love it are the people that spend out the ass on luxury services, people that brag to their friends about how much they spent on something stupid. And so I knew that I needed to be in cities with people that had a lot of money. And so it was working in Austin. And so I said, all right, let me just pick the top 5 cities that I can go to. So I went Dallas, Denver, Atlanta, Seattle, LA. And so I would pump in a couple $100 a day in each area on Google Ads. And with some days I'd do 10 jobs, some days I'd do 25 jobs, but I wasn't dominating one specific market. Austin was always my hub, but I didn't go to LA and dominate LA. I didn't go to Atlanta and dominate Atlanta. I got a small piece of the pie out of a bunch of markets.
Yeah,
And so,
you don't need to dominate the way you're going, man. A couple of jobs here and there, that's all you
right.
need, and you'll kill it like that. I really like this formula you found. And how were these junk companies that you were working with? How was it? How easy is it to find them that are willing to work with you on that per se? Is that hard to get people that are willing to give you a shot?
That's why I was so vocal about what I was doing on Facebook. So I infiltrated Matt and JoJo's trash talk group. They changed the name, but and so I just went in there and I started. This is before I was like doing any marketing or websites. So it was me. I haul junk trying to find subcontractors, and so I'd go in and I'd talk about and I'd show photos of the commercial jobs that we were doing, and say I charged the client 1,400 here. We paid the hauler 850. This is why it worked. This is why the customer hired us, and so I just started talking about that because I to wanted people to know what my expectations were. And so once people knew that I had good jobs, and other people started talking about it, because what it would happen is instead of me telling the hauler how much I was going to pay him, they'd be like, well, how much are you going to give me for this job? I was like, dude, like I'm your customer. You tell me how much you charge, And so like I flipped it around. I said, you tell me how much. And they'd be like, well, we can do it for 750. And I was like, I actually got 900 in this for you. And so I was paying them more than what they'd ask. And so that allowed me to have higher expectations. I was visible and vocal about the expectations and what you get in return. It was a high paying job. And so that's how I attracted good people. And so when when I had a new job that came up in an area that I didn't have a subcontractor, I'd go into the groups. I was like, guys, I need a hauler in Klamath Falls, Idaho, like Nowhereville. Sure as shit, man. There's people everywhere, and almost every dude. We did a job in Prague. I've done jobs in the middle of the fucking desert where there's nothing. Like, and so you don't always go to the junk hauler. Once you get into a place where there's no junk removal companies, I go in and I'd like start calling movers and landscapers and be like, hey, dude, like, would you be willing to go do this? And like when I tell them how much they're getting paid, they'd be like, holy shit, like, yeah, I'll do that, And so now I got a landscaper who's willing to do junk jobs in Klamath Falls, you know what I mean? And so thinking outside the box, just not being afraid to people. We get so focused on perfection, and like the way that you scale is to allow for things to be a little less than perfect, because like, yes, when we're doing it 100% ourselves, that's next level. Like, I mean, but you can't scale that, you know what I mean? And you're going to plateau. And so if you really want to scale to the next level, like we've got to understand what it takes, and you got to be willing to take some risks, and you got to also understand it's okay if it's not perfect. Like I heard
But let me ask you this, Matt. What happens though if you work with a junk removal company and they just it turns out to be a disaster job? The customer's not happy. They go and they write a bad review. Now
Yep.
that bad review goes under your Google page, right?
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah, I mean, you do the same
how do you
thing with
deal with that situation when stuff like that happens?
you do the same thing you would when an employee fucks you over. So you fire them or train them, or depending on if they're, like what they did. If it's trainable and it's just like an honest mistake, well, then we can fix that. And that's what I mean is like, when you're training people, having some compassion and expecting a little less than perfect, and knowing that like we can train these people up and they can do it right. But it's the same as with an employee, like it's just you either fire them or train them, and then you fix the problem. You give damage control. You know what I mean? Like the worst situation I had was with an employee, not a subcontractor. I mean, I had employees throwing away like brand new material on jobs for contractors, and like, so now I have to like fucking drive to San Antonio. I'd spend $800 buying this guy metal and bringing metal on the other side of Texas, for 6 hours because my employee threw away this guy's tin or whatever, like that wasn't a
Yeah.
sub. So I mean, shit's gonna go south whether you have employees, subs, or you're doing it yourself. And
Does,
so
does it happen a lot, Matt? Do you come across problems or not so much? It's very rare occurrence to have a job go bad.
not any more with subs than employees.
Okay.